My ex-wife called me last week from a block number, crying, begging for help. The same woman who once laughed about taking half of everything I owned couldn't even afford her own apartment. I listened to her fall apart, and all I could think was, I warned you. You never steal from someone who knows how to track every missing dollar. I still remember the sound of crystal glasses clinking and the low hum of expensive, self-satisfied laughter swirling around me like perfume. My 40th birthday dinner. The night everything changed. We were in one of those restaurants where the menu doesn't actually have prices, just poetic descriptions that make you embarrassed to ask. The kind of place filled with people who think being charming is the same thing as having a soul. My wife, Amelia, insisted we celebrate there. But let's be honest, it wasn't a celebration of me. It was a stage performance, starring her, for an audience of her closest allies. I was just the prop, the set piece, the man-shaped centerpiece on her life's vision board. We were at the tail end of the meal. The waiter had just placed a dessert in front of me, if you could even call it that. It looked like a modern art museum had sneezed on a plate. One candle flickered in the middle of it, struggling to stay alive in the drafty room. Then it began. Claire, my wife's best friend, a woman whose smile reminded me of a shark contemplating lunch, tapped her champagne glass with a manicured nail. Ting, ting, ting. That tiny chime cut through the restaurant's noise like a scalpel. Everyone, she purred, a toast to the birthday boy. Amelia rose to her feet, champagne in hand, wearing that beatific smile she reserved for moments when she needed to look like the perfect wife. Her eyes gleamed, and she let the table fall silent. Her parents, her sister, and her 3 best friends, her personal board of directors, waited. She turned to me. To my wonderful husband, she began, her voice dripping with sweet, sticky insincerity, a man of simple tastes, but a generous heart. A few of her friends snorted into their drinks. I raised an eyebrow, but I stayed silent. I'd learned patience. Patience is everything. And to my future, Amelia continued, looking around triumphantly, the one we've all been working so hard on. To my future divorce settlement. The table exploded. Laughter. Screeching. People clutching their sides like they had just heard the joke of the century. Claire lifted her glass and yelled, "Get that bag, girl." More howling. It was like watching a pack of hyenas celebrate a fresh kill. And me? I laughed too. Not a forced laugh. Not a nervous laugh. A real one. A laugh I had been waiting months to release. Because they thought I was the mark. Little did they know, I'd already flipped the entire game board. I stood up slowly, lifting my own glass, my smile calm, steady. "That's hilarious, honey," I said, sipping my champagne. "Funny you should say that." I let the pause linger, long enough for their laughter to falter. Because I actually transferred everything into an irrevocable trust under my sister's control, yesterday. Silence. Not polite silence. Not confused silence. No, this was thick, choking, air sucked out of the room silence. The kind of silence that follows an explosion. Faces froze. Jaws dropped. A couple of them literally stopped breathing for a second. Amelia stared at me, color draining from her face like someone had unplugged her from the wall. Her glass shook in her hand. It was beautiful. They thought they were running a con. They didn't know I hunt con artists for a living. Allow me to reintroduce myself. I am not a pushover. I am not a fool. I am a senior investigator in the Special Investigations Unit at a major insurance firm. I spend my days dissecting lies, unraveling financial schemes, and interviewing people who think they invented manipulation. I don't believe in coincidences. I believe in patterns. And for the last year, my own marriage was the most fascinating case I'd ever worked. I met Amelia 4 years ago. She worked in art curation, low pay, high status. Her family appeared wealthy, like a mansion built on a foundation of overdue credit card bills. I wasn't born rich, but I had built a solid, comfortable life. I was stable, successful, predictable. To her, I wasn't love. I was a financial safety net with a pulse. I saw the signs early, the casual comparisons to her friends' vacation homes, the way her desires grew in sync with every bonus I earned. But I thought, maybe, if I built something stable enough, she would evolve past all that. Maybe that was naive. Maybe it was hope. Hard to tell. I insisted on a prenup. She laughed, called it unromantic, but she signed. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. For 3 years, I played my role. I paid off her student loans. I funded her lifestyle. I put a down payment on the gorgeous house we lived in. A partnership, I thought. An investment, she thought. The investigation began with one number. 3 months ago, I noticed a recurring charge, $500 monthly to a consulting service I'd never heard of. Small enough to hide. But I don't miss things like that. Not in my work, not in my life. I dug. It wasn't a consulting firm. It was a high-end divorce strategist. A coach for wealthy women who want to maximize their payout. My wife was paying for divorce advice, while married to me. That was the moment the husband clocked out, and the investigator clocked in. I treated my marriage like a fraud case. Keylogger installed on the home computer. GPS tracker on the car I bought her. A deep financial dive into her world. Group chats accessed and monitored. What I uncovered was a 1-year conspiracy, Amelia, Claire, and a divorce coach guiding them like a general in a heist movie. They planned to file on our 4th anniversary, claim half the house, secure massive alimony, potentially bait me into an affair for leverage. My birthday dinner was supposed to be their pre-victory party. They miscalculated. They underestimated the boring insurance guy. 2 days before that dinner, I made my move. I spent an entire day with my sister, who happens to be a partner at a top law firm specializing in asset protection. We didn't just transfer assets. No. That's amateur hour. We built a fortress. An irrevocable trust controlled by my sister. All premarital assets and investments moved into it. Business restructuring that placed our home under ownership of a holding company controlled by the trust. By the time we were done, everything, except a joint account with a few thousand and a mountain of debt, was untouchable. So when Amelia toasted to her future divorce settlement, I already knew the ending. They were celebrating a heist that had already failed. They just didn't know it yet. And that was the night I closed the most personal case of my career. But trust me, that was only the beginning. Because Amelia didn't take that silence lying down. And the real fireworks? They were still coming. If you've ever watched a room full of people realize they're not the predators, but the prey, then you already know exactly what that restaurant looked like after I dropped my little truth bomb. It felt like someone hit slow motion on reality. The laughter didn't just stop. It died mid-breath. Champagne flutes hovered in the air like they were suspended by fishing line. Forks froze halfway to painted lips. And then, the panic started creeping in. Amelia stared at me, slack-jawed, eyes wide like she had just seen a ghost wearing my suit. But Claire, the divorce coach, mastermind, and self-appointed queen of marital heists, was the first to break. She forced out this sharp little laugh, like a car engine trying to turn over in winter. "That's not funny, Mark," she said, her voice suddenly 2 octaves higher. "You can't just do that." I took a sip of water, slow enough to make a statement. "Do what?" I asked, keeping my tone as calm as a surgeon. "Protect my assets? Actually, I can." And I did. Yesterday was very productive. And just like that, the party was over. I paid the bill, which honestly made the whole moment even funnier in a poetic, messed up way. They planned to drain me dry, and I still picked up the tab for their failed celebration. The drive home? Silence. Not the peaceful kind, this was tactical silence. Every mile, I could feel Amelia trying to calculate whether she had just lost the game before she even filed the opening move. The moment our front door clicked shut behind us, the facade cracked. "What did you do?" she hissed, eyes wild, pacing like she was trapped. I loosened my cuffs, took a breath, and said, "I followed a piece of advice I'd give my own clients. When you suspect you're the target of a long-term financial scheme, you act fast and decisively to reduce the damage." "Scheme? Fraud? I'm your wife," she screeched, pointing at herself like she was expecting a camera crew to appear and vindicate her. "Are you?" I asked softly. Then I walked over to the bookshelf, pulled down a thick leather binder, and placed it on the coffee table with a satisfying thud. "This," I said, opening it to the first tab, "suggests you're a co-conspirator in a plan to defraud me. A plan you've been nurturing for over a year." The first page, the invoice for Claire's consulting services. The next pages, color-coded charts mapping the flow of money from my accounts into months of luxury spending. And then the main attraction, over 100 pages of printed, time-stamped messages from their group chat. I watched her face change like shifting weather, red with outrage, then pink with dread, then pale as drywall as she read her own words back to herself. Where did you get this?" she whispered, barely audible. I leaned back. "I'm an investigator, Amelia. It's literally what I do. You were planning what you thought was the perfect heist. You forgot you married someone who catches people like you for a living." The fight that followed wasn't a conversation, it was a meltdown. She cycled through every textbook stage. Denial. Screaming. Crying. Blaming Claire, blaming her sister, blaming the stress, and eventually, blaming me. The next morning, she was gone. She packed a bag and retreated to her parents' house. And by mid-afternoon, her lawyer was on the phone with mine. Except my lawyer wasn't just anyone. It was my sister, who is, in the legal world, the equivalent of a guided missile with perfect aim. She didn't just confirm the trust. She fired a warning shot so precise you could frame it and hang it in a courtroom. She told Amelia's lawyer we possessed evidence of coordinated financial misconduct. A documented plan to manipulate a divorce outcome. Proof of unauthorized spending and fraudulent returns worth $65,000. Oh right, yes. In my investigation, I found Amelia and her sister had been buying designer clothes using our joint credit card, wearing them once, and returning them, essentially a revolving door of wardrobe fraud. Her lawyer, poor man, was not prepared for this. He sounded like he mostly handled simple divorces and neighbor fence disputes, not financial warfare. He reportedly advised her to settle quickly. So I gave terms. Cold and immovable. She would agree to an uncontested divorce. She would get zero claim to my assets, past, present, or future. The house would be sold, and after removing the $65,000 she took plus legal costs, she'd walk away with nearly nothing. And while she began choking on the consequences she cooked, I turned my attention to the rest of her little inner circle. Because the hyenas who laughed the loudest? Yeah. I had plans for them too. And that's when things got really interesting. Taking apart Amelia's little inner circle wasn't about making noise. It wasn't about dramatic confrontations or shouting matches in parking lots. No, what I wanted was precision. Silence. The kind of revenge that unfolds like a legal document, clean, calculated, and devastating. They thought they were sharks circling a wounded animal. They had no idea I was the one holding the harpoon. Direct hit target 1, Claire, the divorce coach. Claire was the architect of the operation, the self-appointed strategist of my financial demise. And during my investigation, I found something interesting. She wasn't just giving questionable advice. She was essentially practicing law, without actually being a lawyer. She charged clients thousands of dollars to tell them how to hide assets, sabotage prenups, and extract the maximum money from divorces. And she did it while claiming innocence behind inspirational quotes and overpriced coaching packages. So I built a dossier. A thick one. Screenshots of her instructions. Payment records. Public complaints from other women who'd used her services and ended up with scorched earth divorces and empty bank accounts. I packaged it all together and sent it, anonymously, to the State Bar Association. The Attorney General's office. Not a rant. Not a complaint. A clean, factual report alleging the unauthorized practice of law, complete with evidence. Last I heard, her consulting business is now under state investigation, and her website, once filled with pastel empowerment graphics, has gone very, very quiet. Her career? Probably gone. Her ability to ruin other marriages for profit? Severely damaged. Target 2, Becca, PR queen of bad decisions. Next was Becca. Becca worked in public relations for a major family-friendly corporation, the kind that posts inspirational videos about community values and writes giant checks to children's charities during holidays. So imagine my surprise when I discovered that her public social media presence was less than wholesome. We're talking photos of her partying on rooftops with substances that were definitely not legal. Videos of her bragging about lying to men for gifts. Posts mocking clients and coworkers. A highlight reel of terrible judgment. I grabbed the best, or worst, of it, compiled the screenshots in a neat little PDF, and emailed it directly to her company's HR department with a short, polite note. As a concerned shareholder, I believe this employee's publicly visible behavior may conflict with the family-focused values of your brand. 1 week later, Becca was fired for violating the company's morality clause. She went from PR executive to taking some time to reevaluate her career path on LinkedIn. Direct hit. Target 3, Jessica, wife of a rival insurance partner. Jessica was different. She was married, and not just married, she was married to a partner at a competing insurance firm. A man whose name carried weight in my industry. Someone I knew. So I invited him for coffee. No files. No documents. No screenshots. I didn't have to show anything. I just spoke plainly. I told him that during my divorce proceedings, I uncovered evidence that his wife had been advising mine on how to commit marital fraud. I told him this wasn't a rumor, and that he should consider getting a forensic accountant to look into anything unusual. Then I slid a card across the table with a name and number. I didn't ask for details. I didn't need to. But I saw him again a few weeks later at an industry event. He wasn't wearing his wedding ring. And just like that, the circle collapsed. Within a month, the birthday hyenas, those women who toasted to my destruction, were unemployed, under investigation, or staring down their own divorce lawyers. Their friendships didn't survive the pressure. The group chat that once mocked me turned into a digital firing squad. They blamed each other. They blamed Claire. Eventually, they blamed Amelia for bringing me, the monster, into their lives. Amelia, the woman who thought she'd walk away with half my life and a victory speech, was suddenly standing in the ashes of her social world, completely alone. No supporters. No conspirators. No one left to laugh at the joke. But if you think that's where the story ends, oh no. Because what Amelia did next was something I never expected. And it changed everything. Final update, balancing the books. It's been 3 months since that night, the birthday dinner that turned into a battlefield. Last week, the divorce became official. Signed. Filed. Stamped by the state. And just like we predicted, the outcome was brutal. After the house sold and the $65,000 in fraudulent spending was deducted, along with legal fees, Amelia walked away with less than $10,000. A laughable payout for someone who believed she was running a masterclass in marital profiteering. 3 years of scheming, and it left her with barely enough to buy a used car. She moved back into her parents' house. And the fallout didn't stop there. Her father, whose business was already teetering on the edge, had to take out a second mortgage just to contain the legal wildfire she said. And her sister? She's now dealing with a lawsuit filed by Uncle Ron over the store return scam they ran together. That family once cared more about image than integrity. Now their name is in tatters. Their reputation, done. Their finances, circling the drain. I would feel bad if they hadn't dug the hole themselves. Telephone receiver. The call I knew would come. Last week, I got a call from a blocked number. I already knew who it was. There was no mistake in the sound of her voice. She was crying, really crying, the kind of hopeless sob that comes from realizing the ground beneath you is gone. Her voice shook as she told me. Her life was over. She was sorry. She'd been foolish. She didn't know what she was thinking. And she needed help. Just a little help. Anything I could spare. I let her speak. Let her empty out every last line of that rehearsed apology script. When she finally fell silent, I spoke calmly. My voice felt like steel. I'm an investigator, Amelia. My job is to assess risk. And you, your family, your friends, you are the riskiest investment I have ever encountered. She sniffed. She tried to interrupt. I didn't let her. A normal person might just walk away. But that's not what I do. When I deal with a bad investment, I don't keep it in my portfolio hoping it changes. I paused, and then I delivered the line I had waited months for. I write it off, and I make sure it can never, ever be listed on the market again. There was nothing from her. No yelling. No begging. Just breathing, small, broken breaths. You thought you were playing a game, I said, but this wasn't a game. This was a claim. You filed a fraudulent claim against my life, and I spent the last 3 months doing exactly what I do best. I investigated. I documented. And I denied the claim, with extreme prejudice. The difference between you and the criminals I deal with is simple. They usually know when they've been caught. Then I hung up. And I blocked the number. That was the last time I heard her voice. House a new life, balanced books. I'm sitting in my new apartment right now. It's smaller. Minimalist. Clean, like someone wiped down every surface of my life and removed the fingerprints she left behind. I sold the old house. Too many memories soaked into the walls. Too much pretending. Here, the air is quiet. No more secrets. No more surveillance. No more waiting for the knife in my back. Just peace. People think revenge is a single moment, one explosive scene, one perfect line, one triumphant victory. But that's not real revenge. Not the lasting kind. No, the real version is slower. Methodical. A full audit of a broken system. A restructuring of power. A recalculation of every lie until the numbers finally tell the truth. Amelia and her circle thought they were brilliant strategists. They thought they were master manipulators. But they were just amateurs running a clumsy con on a man who has made a career out of dismantling cons. They tried to take everything I built. But they never understood the one thing I value more than money, property, or status. The absolute, unwavering certainty that in the end, the books always balance. And I am always the one who balances them.